Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so much for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. If you want to listen to that on the regular, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, subscribe, because if you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is usually 6 p.m. Eastern time when we do this show, but it's 7 right now, and I'll talk about why that is in just a second. But go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you hit the notification bell on the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel, you'll be notified when we go live here. And then you can come and hang out and be a part of the show. You can comment. We love going back and forth with everybody. It's always a great time. So go subscribe and get those notifications over there. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach DNT, at A to Z Sports, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, and A to Z Sports.com for all the stuff that Zach writes on the internet. Oh, boy. Well, Zach, I have kind of a routine on Mondays. I come home and I run to go get takeout food by my house to just kind of fit it in between getting home and doing this show. We get it from the same place basically every single week. Yassine's Falafel House is great. You should go get it. And then there was this massive backup on Kingston Pike in Knoxville. And it was because hydrochloric acid, apparently, allegedly, supposedly, hydrochloric acid was spilled out of like a semi truck. And I sat in traffic for an hour. From there, it was really great, but we made it here and it's 7 p.m. What is up, man?
Yeah, maybe there was some real concern if we were even going to do this show tonight. Maybe next time we should just live stream it with you in your car and just go through the whole experience. That might be just as entertaining, especially this time of year where it's kind of the quiet before the storm here, before the season really gets going here in a week or so.
Yeah, it is the perfect time to be talking about stuff like this. Rolly in the comments, he says, "Good in K-Town, how smashable." I'm in Knoxville. I know it says Nashville here, but I'm actually in Knoxville. I'm like the Knoxville bureau chief, so to speak, of sorts for A to Z. And yeah, it was just absolutely insane. It was just gridlocked absolutely everywhere, rush hour traffic. And I mean, if you know Knoxville, super popular part of town. There's a big Kroger over there. There's an Academy Sport. There's all this stuff. It was hellacious. So
and worst time of day possible for that as well.
And if you're listening to this right now, don't go over there. I don't know if it's cleaned up. It wasn't cleaned up when I was over there. I mean, we're live only 30 minutes after I got back to my house. So yeah, don't go over there. All right. So another great show for everybody. We had a show last week. It was just, we recorded a segment, technical difficulties or something. It ended up not getting posted on A to Z Sports. We reviewed SEC Media Day. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of that. And talk about specifically a clip that you pulled out, Zach, from Josh Heupel at SEC Media Days that I think is hilarious. And then there's some recruiting news, some really exciting recruiting news, and then sort of how everything is shaken out with the baseball team with transfer portal and MLB draft. Also, we're going to discuss it all right after I tell you about the good folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Go get yourself a health plan. All right. So with SEC Media Days, Trying to think about what all we talked about. I don't want to directly retread it because we did have this entire conversation. Essentially, what we said is that it was mission accomplished for Josh Heupel and his crew. He brought a crew to SEC Media Days that was not going to make headlines on purpose. They made headlines in the way that, Zach, you write headlines for Tennessee. A lot of positive stuff, sound bites about Nico or the defensive line or the cornerbacks or anything like that, but they're not going to say anything silly and make anybody look foolish. And they did that. And Josh Heupel got up in his normal, a lot of coach speak, also not phony. He's a genuine guy, and he presents well at an event like that. But it's pretty milquetoast a lot of the time. But we can start there, Zach. What did you think about it?
Yeah, like there's been a lot of stuff I've reviewed and look, there's so much content, right, coming out of media days with all the coaches, all the radio shows are down there. Everybody kind of stops and talks for a few minutes. Heupel's coach speak is pretty much limited to, when he's at the podium, that's he's business, all business there. He starts around the issues a little bit without being like Butch Jones coach speak. It's a different style of coach speak. I mean, he knows that that he's talking coach speak, and he's fine with that. When he gets on these radio shows, though, it's a different guy. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but it's just so interesting to watch him sit down with these guys and just connect on a human level, like just a couple of dudes talking. He's on 104.5 The Zone a couple times. He's with some different other 99.1 there in Knoxville, several different stations. And man, he's just so real and it's fun. Like it's just like talking to any other athlete too from that era. Heupel's from that late 90s, early 2000s, one of the last real pre-social media eras where you could be a college athlete and just kind of live your life and not have to worry about all this outside noise and who's seeing you do what and all this different type of stuff. He really connects with other guys from that era in such a genuine way. Like you see him even with like Ron Slay, who played basketball. They're just able to sit there and kid you back and forth, and it's so natural. That kind of stuff, I think, is why these kids love playing for Josh Heupel. The fact that he's been through every single thing that they're going to go through. He's been a national champion. He's been under the microscope as the starter at a huge program like Oklahoma. He's went through the NFL draft process. He's struggled to make a team. He never played a regular season game in the NFL. He had some injuries that derailed that. I mean, every kind of like emotion he's transferred. He was a transfer player before the portal was a thing, coming from Weber State and Snow College. So there's all this different stuff that he's experienced as a quarterback coach. I think that's why quarterbacks are so comfortable with him, and I think that's only going to continue throughout this process. But I think really the lasting impression for me from SEC Media Days was how relaxed and loose Heupel was and how confident he is in his team. He wasn't out there making promises or guarantees, but he did not shy away from, we're competing for championships here, and we haven't got there yet. That's the standard, and we're going to continue to work towards that, and that's the expectation every single year. He wasn't running from that, wasn't making excuses. I mean, look, I know he's been there for 3 years. This is his fourth season. He could still use a little bit of what he walked into as an excuse, and he's never really used it as an excuse. He's pointed out the fact that Tennessee played short, which you didn't need him to point that out to understand how short the roster was. But he's never really made that an excuse for losing to South Carolina in 2022 or going 9-4 last season. He wanted to win every single game that he lines up and goes out there with his team. I don't know. It's just refreshing. And the more he settles into being the coach at Tennessee, the more comfortable he seems. And I think that's a great thing for the program. I think you need that at the type of culture that he wants. He's never going to be a Nick Saban, Kirby Smart type of guy, but you don't want a Butch Jones, Billy Napier, Shane Beamer, somebody who's constantly trying to tell you how you should feel about the program. The results are what they are. What you see on Saturdays is what it is. There is no way around it. You're either good or you're not. And Heupel's willing to let that, do the talking for him.
Yeah, he perpetually just has kind of an air of been there, done that. And as you said, just really comfortable in his own skin, confident in what he has. For the third straight season, he said that he has the deepest team he's ever had, which is true. And I think even though it's such a daunting task to be in the SEC, he is just always a cool customer, and that shows. Like when you look at that juxtaposition with Butch, just a guy who didn't know how to handle any of that big spotlight. Obviously, it showed up in big games when he was in tight spots. The best that ever paid off was that Georgia Hail Mary, which was really just a miracle. And I guess the Florida game, he won that one handily by double digits, but still,
after a terrible start to that game.
Yeah, you were down like 21 points in that first half, and it is really just interesting. Everything's relative. Like Heupel doesn't come off as a really remarkable media figure. I mean, he's obviously made a splash in the SEC as a football coach, but in media settings like this, it's like we've said, it's most of the time it's just kind of milquetoast. But when you've been a Tennessee fan all of this time and you've seen the parade of clowns that Tennessee has had since Derek Dooley, this is just the most refreshing gust of wind that you could ever hope for. And it's just been great the entire time. He just handles it. He's gotten better and better as time has gone on. He did seem maybe a little fidgety, a little nervous at first, as you would be taking over a program like this. We kind of said it seemed that way with the new women's basketball coach, where she's very green and has only coached at small programs, and suddenly you're taking the helm of one of the biggest, most resource-rich programs with one of the craziest fan bases in America. And it's a daunting thing, but he just keeps getting more and more comfortable in his own skin. And it's amazing. Obviously, it might be a different thing if he ended up on the hot seat or something like that. But hey, we're not there, and we're not going to be there. All right. I'm going to speak that into existence. We will not be on the hot seat with Josh Heupel. But I did want to play this clip. I'm just going to play it off my phone, I guess, because I don't have a way to play it. My stupid iPad is so old that I can only play certain things through it. It's great. But this is a clip from our friends at 3HL, right?
Yeah.
With Ron Slay. And I just love this clip. You tweeted this out and you said you could not be more relaxed and loose than Josh Heupel was at SEC Media Days last week. And this was the clip here.
Under the bus, but the worst gift. Yeah. There've been a few of them. My wife tends to buy the wrong size pants every Christmas. You know what I mean? Like in front of the entire family.
Like too big or too small?
No, they're huggers. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Bring like skinny jeans. What is this?
Yeah, before skinny jeans were even popular, and I ain't in those skinny jeans.
It's so good. I mean, I love when that personality really comes out like that. He's clearly just a dude, just a dad. It was great all the way around.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, and that right there was just one of the many examples of how relaxed he was at media days. And it's funny. There hasn't been a lot of hype around Tennessee this offseason. If you listen to the predictions and just kind of the national media, and this is like, I'm not mad about this. I don't think any Tennessee fan should be mad about this. I think you should be thrilled about this, because I think it's when Josh Heupel's teams are at their best, because they like having a little bit of motivation, a little chip on their shoulder. But it's all about Ole Miss, right? I even heard Reese Davis say this week, he's almost guaranteeing that Ole Miss is going to make the playoff. Like he's got them kind of locked in, which is an absurd notion, because who knows how the season will play out. You just have, last year means nothing. Brand new team here for all those guys. But it's Ole Miss, it's Missouri, it's Texas, who's really getting the benefit of the doubt based on last season. Alabama getting the benefit of the doubt with a new head coach. Some LSU a little bit. And Tennessee's kind of in like that 6-7 range as far as the predictions go. But I heard, Paul Feinbaum, Laura Rutledge from the SEC Network, they were changing their tune a little bit, post SEC Media Days this weekend, just based on what they heard from Heupel, and they were impressed by the confidence. And it wasn't this kind of like what we're talking about here. It wasn't this forced confidence where he's telling you why they're going to be good. It's just, no, I really like our team and we have great depth. can't wait to compete with these guys. It's a really fun group that, to go into the building with every single day. That same message was coming from Omari Thomas, Keenan Peely, Cooper Mays, pretty much anybody that's talked to the media that's associated with Tennessee football over the last couple of months. But I think that says a lot because the media, I mean, look, these guys, Paul Feinbaum, regardless of what you think about him or his takes, he's been doing this for a long time. He's seen a lot of coaches fired. He's seen a lot of coaches hyped up. He's seen a lot of coaches come out of nowhere and have these great seasons. Even Eli Drinkwitz last season for Missouri, we didn't see that coming. So, you never really know how the season's going to play out. And it's like they saw a little something there. It's like, okay, maybe I think Laura Rutledge verbatim said, maybe we're overlooking this Tennessee team just a little bit going into the 2024 season. And I think that's probably the case. And it doesn't mean they're going to go out there and set the world on fire. They have some really tough games on the schedule. Starting pretty early in the season, going to Oklahoma won't be easy, especially with all the emotions surrounding that game. But there does feel like there's, a belief in this team and the competitiveness. It's a team full of guys that are super competitive and not so much worried about how many yards am I going to have at the end of the season, but how many games did we win? And when you have that, I mean, that's kind of what it takes to have something special happen because every game's not going to be your game. It's kind of the reason the Denver Nuggets are so good in the NBA at times. It's because it's somebody different every single night, and they thrive off of that. And that's the way it's going to be for this team if they're going to be successful. It might be Squirrel White, going off for 150 yards one game, or it might be Chris Brazzell or Dante Thornton, going off for a huge game. If the new NCAA game's any indication, Chris Brazzell is going to be incredible this season. But it might be Dylan Sampson. You just never know what the game, what the other team's going to give you, and you have to be willing to take whatever they give you to go win the game. And it feels like they're all bought into that.
They really, whatever it is with Heupel, the players really seem to love him, and it's awesome. And I agree. This season, I think I said this before the 22 season too, and it's really been true all of Heupel's years. To have a special year, you're going to kind of have some unexpected performances. It's a kind of Dalton Connect, Hendon Hooker sort of thing to have something. Now, it could be Nico Amaliava, who we almost expect a season like that out of and just haven't seen it yet. But we'll see there. But yeah, maybe it is Chris Brazzell. Maybe EA Sports knows something that we don't. Now he was a highly rated dude, but maybe that does come to fruition and he is that guy. Maybe James Pierce has the season of his life, like a lot of people are predicting he will be. Maybe he's the number one overall pick and all this stuff that people have been saying. Or maybe it's somebody in the DBs and you finally get a miraculous performance out of one of those guys. Maybe it's Keenan Peely. It's going to take something like that this year. And I think with the players coach that Heupel is, it's a good setup to have something like that happen. Obviously he fosters that in a lot of ways, and he loves athlete leadership and everything that comes along with that. I mean, a guy like Hendon Hooker, who could be more perfect to be in the system with Josh Heupel than Hendon Hooker, the way that he was just kind of a quiet, hardworking leader that, it sort of felt like he was almost a coach out there. And it's just the perfect type of dude. And so hopefully there's something like that on this team too, but we'll see. Obviously the previews are going to be coming up here in the next few weeks. You got camp coming straight up and everything else that's right around the corner. I mean, we are coming up on a month from the first game. We are that close. What, August 31st? Yep. Oh boy. I mean, it is right there. So I'm obviously really excited, but was there anything else with media days before we have a few recruiting tidbits here, Zach?
Yeah, I thought it was, I kind of flew under the radar. I think it was on one of the radio shows. Heupel kind of pointed out, not really harping on it, but in passing, mentioning where Tennessee has to get better. And he did throw out the pass defense. It's not something that he's oblivious to, that the pass defense has struggled at times over the last couple of years. And with this overhaul in the secondary, bringing in new guys, you got some younger guys that you expect to step up this fall as well. There's going to be a lot of opportunities there. I'm going to be super intrigued. One, to see how much Heupel kind of pays more attention to that side. I mean, he's an offensive guy, obviously, but he's still the head coach of the whole team. does he kind of force Tim Banks' hand there to play some younger guys and to kind of take some risk and give some guys some opportunities? Does Banks do that on his own? Has he kind of learned from these last couple of years? Because you got some young guys with some talent. I mean, I think Boo Carter is going to be one of the best defensive backs on this team, maybe in the SEC. I don't know how quickly he'll get to that point, but he seems like the kind of guy that you need on the field early and often. You were mentioning, you need some guys to step up out of nowhere. I think Boo Carter falls in that category on the defensive side of the ball, and as a returner, he feels like a guy that when he's out there, he's going to make the most of his opportunities. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He came from a defense that was a little bit similar to Tennessee's in high school. So hopefully he's more prepared to play early in this defense as a true freshman. He's been on campus for a while, so it'll be interesting to see how many opportunities some of those younger guys get and how the rotation shakes out with these newcomers and these transfers. There's a lot to be excited there. There's a lot of unknown, and it could go completely the wrong way and kind of sabotage this team's chances in 2024. I mean, that's worst case scenario. But there's also plenty to be excited about and plenty of reason for optimism there. When you combine that with that defensive line that's so deep, and then some linebackers there getting Keenan Peely back, Arian Carter, who I think is really in store for a breakout year because he's just so athletic. He's the kind of guy that ends up playing in the NFL that has that speed and instinct that you need in the SEC to beat Georgia, to stop some of those, passes over the middle to tight ends that just destroy you, or scrambling quarterbacks that pick up first downs when it's 3rd and 14. Those are the types of plays you can't give up. So you got some guys that I'm really excited about that I think can really take this defense to the next level. And if you can do that with what we expect from the offense, I mean, it should be 2022 all over again, where you've got an opportunity going late into the season to really make a run. And hopefully they learned a lot from 2022 and 2023 with some of those tough road games. They can build on that experience because this still is a young program under Heupel. You've got a lot of learning, even as coaches there, that had to go through some tough times there. And hopefully they can build off of that and really deliver this fall.
I hope so, because there's a ton of potential there. Jason in the comments says, I absolutely love this year's team in depth, except for the running backs. Dylan Sampson has to stay healthy. I would 100% agree with that. I mean, he's the dog.
You need Cam Seldon to get healthy. You need Peyton Lewis to step up. Khalifa Keith, somebody. You definitely need some depth there, yeah.
Yeah, since we speculated a lot that they might pick up somebody out of the transfer portal. They never did. And so, hey,
and there were options. And that was
Heupel.
There were options there. There were guys that they said Tennessee was interested in early. And you had a Vol Legacy that entered the portal that never really even got a look from Tennessee there. And Dallin Hayden ended up at Colorado after leaving Ohio State. That's a decision that they made. So, I don't know. Based on Heupel's competitiveness and the way he likes this roster, you have to trust that he made the right decision, but we still haven't seen it yet.
Speaking of EA Sports, what if Colorado ends up actually being good this year?
There was a Paul Feinbaum was on First Take this morning with Stephen A. Smith, and his like bold prediction, it really wasn't even bold. It's kind of what he wants to see happen if Lincoln Riley gets fired this offseason was Deion Sanders at USC. And that would be, I mean, that would be one. It would be a match made in heaven, right? Deion, bright lights.
Oh,
of
no
LA.
doubt.
I mean, that feels like where he should be. No offense to Boulder, but it's kind of tough to get some of those. Even if you're Deion, it's tough to get somebody to come out to Colorado. It's not, the brand recognition just isn't there. So Deion at USC would be, I don't know how that would go, because I still don't really believe in him as a head coach, but it would be entertaining without a doubt.
If he can actually get that team to be half decent, I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance they're just as bad as last year. I think a ton of that team turned over and they just replaced them with transfers, and a lot of the transfers weren't super high-level guys. Dallin Hayden's a high-level guy for sure.
He's fortunate that he's in the Big 12, though, now, and you don't have USC, you don't have Oregon and some of those other teams to deal with. I mean, the Big 12 is kind of like when the Big East was still hanging on when Miami and Virginia Tech left in the early 2000s. That's kind of how it feels.
It's just like Louisville and Rutgers just going back and forth.
Yeah, it's just
classic. That's Greg Schiano teams back then.
Oh yeah, and still he just that's
true.
He just keeps going back there.
Yeah. Barrett says, I've never been more excited about football than right now. Go Big Orange. Go Big Orange. Rolly says, speaking of Paul Feinbaum, he got roasted by Lane on his own show. I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, he did. He called him out for some of the takes he's had over the years. Back in, I guess it's like 2013, 14. He compared him to Miley Cyrus, and there was some other, in typical Feinbaum fashion. And Kiffin, I don't think it's the first time he's given it to Feinbaum a little bit. And Kiffin's delivery, he's not as wild as he can be. He's usually pretty calm in his delivery. He doesn't get too high or too low when he's talking to reporters. It's almost like he's sad a lot of times when he's talking. And at SEC Media Days, his father had just passed away, so there was definitely a gray cloud hanging over his whole time with the media, understandably so. But he kind of gave it to Feinbaum, and the whole time you're watching it wondering, is this a joke? Is he going to start laughing? And he never really did. And it just the segment just kind of ended. So it was,
wow.
Who knows with Lane?
I mean, to a certain extent, Paul probably deserves that a little bit. But,
oh, yeah. Paul fires off some hot takes with the best of them. And he's wise enough to know that typically they get forgotten very quickly. But Lane has held on to a few of those.
Yeah, he's a Tennessee alum. But we got to be honest about Paul. He gets out there in left field some.
Yeah.
Kenny says, "Hey guys, what's up, Kenny? Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. But now we got to move over to a little bit of recruiting because there was some very good recruiting news today that we got to cover here on the show. We'll do that right after I tell you about Zen Sports." The new sportsbook in Tennessee that's bringing sports betting to a whole new level. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to a $100 no-danger first wager. If your bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. But there's even more good news. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program, and if you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it. There's even sportsbook bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. What are you waiting for? Zen Sports offers true odds on all parlays, so get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger. First wager limited to plus 500 odds. So qualify. Boosted odds are derived from equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. So, recruiting, we've talked about in recent weeks, just a nice little run that Tennessee has been on lately of picking up recruits. But one of the misses that happened recently was with Deshaun Brame, who is a tight end, a highly rated for, I think, a bona fide 4-star across the board. Tight end. A guy that Tennessee, especially with Josh Heupel's offense, where a tight end is such an important position. It's a guy you really want to pick up, and he chose Oregon. And it was kind of weird because I saw leading up to it, we really didn't talk about it here because I'm not, I don't get on here just to dump on Josh Heupel or anything. So he missed out on that one. And it was weird because I think there were some predictions that he was going to come to Tennessee leading up to that, and then he chooses Oregon. Well, today, Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons put in expert predictions. They're guys at On3. Expert predictions that Brame will flip from Oregon to the Tennessee Volunteers, maybe ending up where he needed to all along. Did you see this, Zach? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, I think it's really impressive from Tennessee and Josh Heupel. They've been recruiting pretty well over these last, really over the last year, but it's been kind of a slow burn, right? Like it hasn't been this just onslaught of commits. So as a result, you haven't seen them in the top 5 of recruiting rankings. And I don't know if they'll get to the top 5, but it seems like they're going to end up being at least in that 5 to 10 range if this kind of plays out how we think it will. But taking a commit from Oregon, I think the kid's from Kansas, so it's not even like he's got these deep ties to either place. Dan Lanning is another guy that's been recruiting extremely well. He's kind of a media darling out there at Oregon, and rightfully so. He's a good coach, and he's really turned took that program back to where we kind of saw Oregon in the Chip Kelly days pretty quickly, which was weird because I didn't think he was the best fit when he initially went out there, but it seems to be working out quite fine. But to go still a recruit or a commit from one of the top recruiters in the country, that's huge for Tennessee. And it's not just, Brame. You've got several guys that are going to commit in the next couple of weeks that look like they're trending towards Tennessee. So here over and you just had Christian Gass, a 4-star linebacker that committed last Saturday to Tennessee. I think they had to commit the previous Saturday as well. I mean, you're really stacking up some commits here late in the process, or not really late in the process, getting later in the process. It's impressive. I mean, this staff knows how to recruit. They're still going to miss on some guys here and there because they're still not Georgia. They're still not Ohio State, but they're beating those programs for some recruits at this point. I mean, you beat out Georgia for Travis Smith, an in-state guy. You might beat out Ohio State for David Sanders here in a couple of weeks, 5-star offensive lineman, which would be, one of the biggest recruiting gets of the entire cycle for any program. And you throw in beating out Oregon for this kid if they're able to flip him. I don't know how you couldn't be excited about the way they're recruiting, the way they've built this kind of sustainable model. I know we reference Butch Jones a lot, but it's really just to compare and contrast what works and what doesn't work. And during the Butch Jones era at Tennessee, he found recruiting success really quickly, really fast, and then it all kind of fell apart. He had a lot of guys leave the program, a lot of commits that were all in on Tennessee that were buying into what Butch was selling. All of a sudden they left and kind of turned sour. Like Vic Wharton was one that I remember. He was one of Butch's first commits. Jalen Hurd, obviously, we know all about that story. Heupel didn't try to take any shortcuts at all with these broken promises or anything like that. And it's kind of built this sustainable model that I think, it's really just getting going. Like he hasn't even really hit overdrive yet with recruiting. It's kind of building up to that, which is really exciting because there's always going to be 5-star guys in every class, and you're getting more and more of these guys. You got Faison Brandon, a 2026 5-star quarterback, also set to commit early next month. All indications are that's going to be Tennessee as well. I mean, I think 24/7 has him as the number 1 overall player in the 2026 class. It's wild, kind of the heater that they're on here, and it's not getting a ton of attention. It doesn't seem like nationally, not quite yet.
No, I think it's still in a lot of people's minds, and I don't know that this will be shed until Heupel maybe makes a playoff, makes a run, does something really serious, which, hey, 2022 was very serious. You missed the playoff by a single game, but until that happens, there's just still that perception of, oh, it's Heupel with the gimmick offense, and until the defense is good, la-di-da. Like I just get that off of other people who are fans of other teams that I just know in my life. It kind of feels like that's the take a lot. They're like, hey, you guys have gotten better. That's awesome, but it's still like that's the deal with that guy, right? And I think quietly he is making those moves, and we've said it here a ton. To beat those elite teams, you have to get elite guys. Period. I think now with the expanded playoff, you can probably get really, really close. Especially if you can have a great game and they have a bad game and you win one you're not supposed to win. How things work in tournaments. The opportunity is there, but to consistently hang with a Georgia, it's got to be higher level recruiting than he's been doing. And maybe this is it, where it starts to kick off. And if you can lock down a top 10 class here, start off with Faison Brandon in 26 and top 10 class there, and build and build and build. Like that's really where it comes from. And it all starts now. And we talked about this on the Lost segment that I mentioned earlier that we recorded last week and it didn't get posted. But Travis Smith, wide receiver, 4-star wide receiver, committed. You mentioned Christian Gass, 4-star linebacker. He commits. Then there was that whole string of guys in the last few weeks that we talked about before. I mean, it's really coming together here. And yeah, David Sanders lined up potentially, and just a series of guys that could bring you a borderline elite class. And that's where it gets really, really serious. Because you look at basketball and you look at football. What do those teams have? Elite dudes. They have some, Christian Moores, Dalton Connects. That is how you set yourself apart. Hopefully, Nico's going to be that guy. It looks like James Pierce is going to be that guy. You're getting there. It's slowly coming together, and you just obviously you're catching up to teams that have been stacking these classes on top of each other for years at this point. But now is the time. Let's let's get a full class of elite guys in the door, and let's see what happens, because I think it's really exciting. I think Heupel is an excellent coach, and it would just be that much better if he could get elite dudes in the door. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I'll say ultimately too, with the recruiting rankings, we're at a point now with the state of college football that these rankings, who has the number 1 class, who has the number 5 class, as long as you're in the top 10, top 15, I think it's almost, or maybe top 10, it's almost irrelevant at this point because of the transfer portal, because these classes aren't staying together anywhere. I mean, you're going to have guys leave inevitably. Tennessee's had guys leave that probably weren't going to see the field early. LSU 2023, I don't know what their class was ranked. I imagine it was fairly high. LSU was usually pretty high, but you had a 5-star offensive lineman in that class for LSU, Lance Hurd, who's now at Tennessee. I mean, if you go back and you put Lance Hurd as a 5-star offensive tackle in Tennessee's 2023 class, what does that boost their recruiting ranking to? So it's kind of misleading in a way, because, even at a place like Georgia, you're never going to keep all these guys that you sign. The ones that work out are going to work out. And then you're going to add, through the portal, whether it's need base or luxury player, whatever the case is, it's kind of this mixed bag now where you don't have to have 5 straight number 1 classes to win a championship. You can quickly build an elite roster, over a year or two. It's not the most sustainable way to do it, like like Lane Kiffin is at Ole Miss, but it still, I think, throws enough into those rankings where it's just not necessary to harp on that top 5 class anymore like you used to.
I hope so. There is still that stark difference. You were touching on this. That stark difference when you look at Butch. Obviously, we saw those classes up close and the dynamics there. And he had a top 5 class that he had. It completely fell apart. And even though Heupel is losing some players each year to the portal, that's regular for everybody at this point, I shudder to think what Butch would have lost right now for Tennessee, because he had that mass exodus when it wasn't this easy with the transfer portal and all of those things. Guys were like, absolutely not. This is terrible. I'm out of here. And you obviously heard all of the stories that went around of just kind of promises that he made that were broken, and all, you just kind of the used car salesman stuff that he would do. And you don't have any of that with Heupel. He's straightforward with these guys. We've already said it. He's real players coach. It seems like a lot of these guys like him a lot, and it shows. But the final step, despite the fact that I think you can have a great football team right now without that perpetual top 5 class, the final step is to have that top 5, top 10 class, though, for Heupel, though, where I think it's what would, to me, it's what is going to take him over the precipice. Because you can feel, I mean, it's sort of like with baseball. You're not touching it like you did with baseball. You're making it to the College World Series and stuff. Football hasn't gotten there yet. Let's make a playoff first and let's see. But it does kind of feel like you're on the precipice of, if we could just get these couple of puzzle pieces in place, then you're in that elite echelon suddenly. And to me, possibly the biggest one is recruiting. I mean, Caleb Meadows in the comments, he says David Sanders might be the most important recruit for Tennessee. We have to have him. Yeah, because just the perception of getting a guy like that is across the board, bona fide 5-star, just real, like, just the perfect cherry on top of this class that you have right now. It would be incredible. We'll
Plus,
see.
how many guys have you seen Tennessee be in the mix with like that this late into the process, and then ultimately miss on to really flip that narrative completely? I think one thing to add real quick with the recruiting thing is, I don't think Heupel's ever going to have like a number 1 or number 2 recruiting class, no matter how good Tennessee is, because you see them, they pass on quite a few guys, talented guys, and you've seen that quite a few times in the portal. You've seen guys come in for visits, and all of a sudden they're not interested anymore, and that can go both ways too. Like, I'm not saying it's always Tennessee passing. I'm sure there's instances where the player passes on Tennessee. Not everybody's going to be a match, but it does seem like Heupel's so protective of that culture. He's not just going to go after every single 5-star guy because they're a 5-star guy. If he doesn't fit what they've built, like, he will move on regardless of how talented the player is.
No doubt. And we're going to find out soon enough. You already said it. There's this big string of guys with commitments coming up and through the season. It's going to be a telling season, I think, for Heupel. I think it's going to go well, especially if you can get a guy like David Sanders. I think that's for sure. Because it just feels so close. So close. You can almost taste it here. Billy Bob says our future is so bright. We need shades. Man, I'm excited about this season. I'm excited about this class. Let's just go already. I'm just ready to go. But with that said, previews coming up in the next few weeks. Maybe talk about the most important players for Tennessee, some position previews, some different things. Obviously, that's what we're going to do on the show. But anything else before we finish up? We got to get off for Buck's show here in just a second. I mean, I know nobody who's watching this is going to watch Buck, but anything else with football, Zach?
I think we've almost covered all of it before training camp starts here in a week and a half, I guess, for Tennessee, and that's when it gets real fun. That's when we have real things to talk about.
Finally,
yes, real. Who's looking good, who's not, who's getting hyped, who's not. It'll be fun.
Let's get to it. So
best time of the year.
Just to wrap it up, we did have a few news and notes for baseball. Exciting on my own front here. This was just a few minutes ago. I saw from a few people in local media. Cal Stark plans to sign a UDFA with the Texas Rangers. Oh. My boys. Exciting. So now you got Dreiling and Cal Stark with the Rangers. That's a ton of fun. Anson Siebert, who is top recruit in Tennessee's upcoming class. He turned down the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions. Who are they now? The Tigers.
Yeah. I think they've been the Tigers for like 100 years.
For quite some time. Yeah, but he turns down the Tigers. And will sign with Tennessee. That was from Ben McKee, friend of the show, just a few minutes ago. And then Eric Ratazic actually officially signed with the Marlins, who he was an exciting offensive player that was coming from Niagara University, and apparently that's not happening anymore. But baseball's going to be good. Let's just be honest. Even if Ratazic doesn't show up, I think this team is going to be good. But did you have any thoughts on the movement with baseball, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, Tony Vitello's got some grace here on the building this roster after winning a natty. We'll see. It's going to be tough, when you're Tennessee. We talked about this before. LSU, a lot of top programs deal with the same thing. You go recruit the best high school players, and inevitably they're going to get drafted, and you have to go through that whole process. I think Trey Snyder is one that was picked by my Mets, so I'm kind of conflicted on that. It looks like he's going to end up with the Mets signing instead of going to Tennessee. That's just going to be one of those things you got to deal with every year, and hopefully maybe some NIL deals can come through and you're able to get a few of these guys on campus, but that's it's going to be a puzzle every single year. But Vitello's been pretty excellent at it so far. He's managed to piece it together each year and give Tennessee an elite team. So I have no doubt he'll be able to do the same thing going into next season.
If there is any coach on Tennessee's campus that I trust implicitly in whatever he does at this point, it is Tony Vitello.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's going to turn guys away that want to play at Tennessee at this point.
Exactly. So I have absolutely no fear that that's all going to come together for them. The class, even without some of those dudes that are going to go pro, it's pretty great. So those are just the news and notes. Vol fan for life in the comments. He says, I think we can. I'm not saying we will, but I think we have the talent to go 12-0. There we go, baby. It's
Yeah,
almost football season. Let's go. 12-0. Speak it into existence. From these comments to God's ears. Let's go 12-0.
You know it's the goal in the locker room right now, so why not?
Yeah. Hey, the possibility is there outside of that game in Athens.
Would you take would you take 11-1, but the one loss is to Kentucky?
Oh.
Sleep on that one for a week.
If ultimately it ended with like a national championship bid.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily like a national championship win, but like you make it to the national championship game, maybe even the semifinals. Maybe. I could stomach that, but God, that would be worse than that 22 season losing to South Carolina. God almighty. Yeah, don't say that ever again.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, Heupel owns Mark Stoops. I think he takes out a lot of the Bob Stoops frustration on that guy.
Yeah. You've been playing the video game a lot. How are we looking on there?
We're not getting any respect from the committee. We finished 13-0, won the SEC championship against Georgia. Tough to win on the road, like one possession games. And we're ranked number 6 in the rankings, the only undefeated team. So, got a tough game against Oregon coming up.
Go Vols then.
The disrespect is just like in real life, though. Alabama's ranked above Tennessee with like 3 losses. It's unreal.
I'm glad they made the algorithm in that game realistic.
Yeah,
respect EA Sports for
and
that.
it's not just me playing. I tweeted that out yesterday. I had a ton of people replying that they were showing screenshots of similar scenarios. So it's a feature that's built into the game.
That Tennessee bias.
Yeah,
we all know it's real. It all goes back. I mean, we all remember Chris Fowler and the Trailer Park Frenzy, and ESPN hates us.
We all know that. Not included in the game in the commentary.
Just disgusting. I mean, it's Reese Davis. It's not Chris Fowler. It's Reese Davis, isn't it, in the game? He's the main.
Oh,
voice,
yeah.
Right?
No, is it? No, I think it's Fowler. It's Fowler.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's his voiceover. That's all he does now.
We don't forget Chris Fowler.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you only call big games and tennis now. We don't forget.
That's true. I forget
yeah, he's big tennis guy, Chris Fowler. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. Thanks so much for watching. Buck is coming up next. If you do, stay right here and your regularly scheduled programming. But that's it. Camp is starting up, and we're going to discuss it all here in the coming weeks. It's going to be a ton of fun. A month away. So that's all. Thanks so much to everybody who commented, who hung out. It was a great time. We could not do the show without you. We appreciate it seriously. And that's it. We'll talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.